It's the savvy side of 9 to 5. Listen.
It's not a lie if you believe it.
Laugh.
We had a little fun, because it's a very long day, you know.
And learn.
Negotiation. This is what you do in business.
This is The Focus Group with Tim Bennett.
All right, let's go already.
And John Nash.
Pucker up, Buttercup.
With a focus on career, the consumer culture, and marketing from an LGBT point of view. We're all business, except when we're not.
Welcome to The Focus Group. John Nash here with my good friend and co-host, Mr. Tim Bennett. Looking. All right, so I went.
Chair too high?
Is your what?
Chair too high.
Chair too high.
My chair too
This
high.
is the first time this question
Is it comfortable?
It feels all right. I just it looks like my head's off.
You got a good headspace.
All right.
You're looking good.
And the real question is he in a good headspace? He's got headspace, but is he in a good headspace?
In a good headspace.
Focus
Shirt
Group.
moving?
My shirt looks okay,
concerned
guys.
before.
Right?
Yes,
this
looks
is a check pattern you could get away with. Any closer, it would be causing
Yeah,
the
it'd be a little
moire,
more, a little bit
the
too
moire
much.
thing. FocusGroupRadio.com is our website. If you visit the site, you can learn all about us, the show, and the platforms we're on, audio and video. If you're joining us now via Facebook Live or YouTube Live, welcome to the show. Feel free to call anytime you like. The number here is 877-962-6846.
If it was bigger on the screen, you could have read it.
Well, my eyes are doing okay. We were talking about that at lunch,
but
actually.
I wanted a bigger graphic.
So I was going to wear a solid blue today, but I thought, you're probably going to wear a solid
You cannot
blue.
co-opt my colors. Now, I've told you for years about wearing dark colors, and you wouldn't do it, and then somebody randomly tells you to do it, and you decide you're going to do it, but that's my shtick.
It's kind of like my brother-in-law, Steve. We were out at the Out in the Vineyard event
K-Wine weekend, yeah.
K-Wine weekend, and we go to visit my sister and her husband. They were packing up their house. They were getting ready to move to Maryland, and we go to visit, and I go inside, but Steve sees you in the driveway, and the first thing out of his mouth is...
I don't even think I got a hello. He pulls me aside and he goes, tell John not to wear a T-shirt anymore.
one of my crew necks. So on show day, I have to wear a V-neck. I can't wear crew neck.
So, yeah.
I've always liked a crew neck T-shirt, though. There's something I like. Something about the line.
It's very American.
It's also a little Wall Streety, a little businessy.
It was a way, but it was also a way you could tell. At least in Europe back in the day, you could always tell the Americans because they always had
crew neck T-shirts.
crew neck T-shirt on. Very Ralph.
So what do we have going on in the show today?
So aside from our usual nonsense, we have joining us a friend of the Focus Group who actually, he probably doesn't know this because we didn't tell him at the time, but he was our very last guest when we were at SiriusXM on OutQ. Stuart Elliott. And Stuart Elliott's the former columnist of the New York Times where he did all things advertising, marketing. His expertise goes well beyond that. And he's now with MediaVillage.com, and he just did a column this morning that said, is the Super Bowl going to be super? Are the ads on the Super Bowl
Going to be super.
going to be super? So we're going to talk to Stuart about the Super Bowl and all the advertising that goes around it. John and I had been talking all month about there seems to be no hype about the advertising this year, so we want to find out from Stuart what in fact's going on.
When I invited Stuart to join us, and I'm so glad he was able to make it happen today because he's one of our favorites. The headline, the subject line on the email was, "Is the Super Bowl dead?" That was my attempt at being provocative. I think that might have been.
We'll save all of our Super Bowl and advertising chat with Stuart.
We'll say about Stuart, though, you and I count ourselves very, very lucky. I count myself extremely lucky that 3 or 4 of our ad campaigns made it to his column. And then I was quoted in another column that he was writing about the industry in general. And then you were interviewed by him for the Martina.
Well, Stuart was the Oprah of advertising. I mean, if you got in Stuart's column or you got mentioned in a Stuart column, it was big doings.
A friend of mine often says to me, he goes, "You're set. Your legacy's set. You made it. You did your thing. You made it into Stuart's column. You're set. You can get off the train now."
A quick thing for you. I was reading on my way up. Do you have $21 million? $22 million?
Tim, I'm shy of that. I only have 19.5.
We get it. I don't
Garrett
know
has.
Garrett says yes. So we've got Garrett, John, and Allie, of course, our production team that gets us out there. So I was reading this, and I was shocked about how little it was. So the company that owns Lincoln Logs and Tinkertoys is for sale. PNC Capital is putting up for sale. It's a small company in Hatboro, Pennsylvania called Connects. I think it is
K-I-N-E-X,
Connects.
yeah.
And they're selling it. The bid right now, the highest bid so far is $21 million. So for $21.1, you could probably pick it up, John. If they say, so Tinkertoys and Lincoln Logs, toys of a kind of legacy.
Toys of yore.
Toys of yore. But I loved them as a kid. I'm sure we all did. However,
Favorite toys.
The sales are dying, of course, with that sort of thing. But what two fun brands to own? What would you do with them if you had to do a new campaign for Tinkertoys and Lincoln Logs? How would you position them?
Ah, that's fascinating idea.
Everybody's on an electronic device.
You read my mind, because I'm thinking about all the screen time kids have now, but how that playtime with the physical toy was so important. And
Right.
my first mission, if we acquired that company, I would begin the mission of acquiring one other company to add to the mix. I don't even know if they exist anymore, but do you remember girders and panels?
Yeah.
You remember you'd build the skyscraper and click the panel. So you'd get girders and panels, Lincoln Logs,
Tinkertoys.
And all you need is Lego. You got the market covered on the building stuff. But
It's like back in the day buying a Peugeot and Yugo franchise from the car companies.
they were giving them away back in the day. How would you, if you were the an agency that pitched the Connects toy campaign, and let's say they honestly said to you, we have $5.8 million to spend on advertising. Does that even sound like a reasonable number?
Well,
nowadays?
I was thinking about what you would do, and I think the one thing, I think smartly, there used to be I think it was called Discovery Stores or something,
Yeah.
or Einstein kids' toy stores. You have to make it about imagination and about belief and about creativity.
What if?
Yeah, and that was the whole joy of those toys as a kid, right? Is what could you make? What can you imagine? And
I'm laughing because you could really only build one or two style houses with Lincoln Logs, but
you spent
you got that can.
a couple hours doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
You were always very excited about it, and you're right, the can was great, and you dump the stuff out and then try to build it, and inevitably my brother and I would start knocking over things and yelling and screaming. Tinkertoys you'd always find them somewhere else other than where they were supposed to be. But I don't know. I thought it would be fun brands to have, but I'm sure that they've struggled with how do you compete in today's world with those sort of toys.
How do you break through? How do you make it a desirable item that a kid will want? And I think that, and sadly, I was playing with that stuff when I was 8, 9, 10, 11. I bet you have to push the age down. So nowadays, I guess a kid that gets 8, 9, 10, 11, they're on screens.
Yeah.
So you have to push that down. But it would be a very interesting challenge, wouldn't it? Because I'm not even sure where you would advertise it. I think a store partnership like what you were talking about would make a lot of sense.
Toy stores are gone. It's Walmart.
Toys R Us is
Amazon.
closing 180 shops nationwide or something. So
that's what happens. But anyway, I thought if you had 21 million around, maybe we could pick it up.
is there another toy?
Or buy pot stock.
Is there oh my God. Yeah. Another interesting topic, and I think we're going to be touching on a little bit of that at the beginning of the show, but so the Attorney General comes out and rescinds the Cole memo, which allows states' attorney generals to pursue going after pot growers and stuff. But the industry seems to, or the states that allow it seem to have a collective sigh, or yawn. Is anything happening in that sector? I mean, it doesn't seem to cool it down at all.
What are you going to do?
When a vast majority of Americans approve of it, and a lot of municipalities and states want the tax revenue,
Genie's out of the bottle.
Sessions puts his little glasses on, sits with his bowl of chicken noodle soup at night.
Making molasses cookies. Heavens to Betsy.
Where are we going to go on our summer vacation? Sturbridge Village. Let's watch them make penny candy.
Exactly.
So what caught your eye, Mr. Bennett?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
Speaking of pot,
So I knew this. I cheated. I saw the deck a little bit.
This caught my eye only because the head of this company, so AutoNation, which is it's the largest U.S. dealer auto chain. So they own. So it's a group
They're a
of
holding?
investors. So they're a holding company. So they'll buy Porsche franchises, Volkswagen, Subaru, Mitsubishi,
I didn't know that's
whatever,
how that
and they
worked with
all
them.
go under a holding company called AutoNation. So it's AutoNation Chevrolet, AutoNation Volkswagen, whatever. And the guy that runs it up heads it up is a guy named Mike Jackson, and he's 68 years old. And so probably doesn't necessarily fit the profile of what you would think. But it used to be, I knew him when he was a Mercedes executive. He used to run Mercedes in the United States here. And he went over to when these holding companies started to become a big thing in the late 90s, early 2000s. So he runs this big holding company. And so I saw his picture there, and then the headline said, AutoNation just decided to stop caring about pot smoking.
So this would be a hiring issue.
Thing.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
and I'll read it because it just makes more sense if I read it than for me to explain it. But it says, AutoNation Inc. no longer refuses to hire job applicants who test positive for marijuana in drug screenings. Chief Executive Officer Mike Jackson said in an interview, the shift, which he said was made quietly 2 years ago, shows that corporate America's hiring practices are evolving along with pot's legal status in some locales. And they have huge holdings in Denver, Washington State, obviously. And I thought that was interesting because you and I talked about this. What are companies going to do if you have a regional office in Denver, which a lot of companies do, or Seattle, and
you're sourcing your
marijuana is
employees?
legal?
Yeah.
How can you say your employees in New Jersey can't smoke, but your employees in another locale where it's legal can? So he said, if you tested positive for marijuana, you couldn't join our company, said Jackson, 68. At a certain point a couple years ago, we just said, you know what, that's wrong. So they don't even test for it anymore. They did say, though, that they still test for cocaine and other illegal drugs. And if you did test positive for cocaine, you would not be hired. But they had said that at Gallup poll in 1969, only 12% of the population supported legalization of marijuana. And there's a chart that I think we had that shows it's above 60% now.
It looks like actually that chart almost looks exactly like the Dow Jones Industrial Average from Trump's election to now. I hate to say it, but that's the...
There's another guy, John Challenger, who's with a Challenger Gray and Christmas, which is an Chicago-based employment firm, said companies recognize that they don't screen for alcohol, so why should they for pot? And
you had posed that question to a guest we had last year,
right,
who was a big advocate for the industry. And you had said, what happens to a company with a presence in many states where some may have it, some may not? You know, how does
HR handle it? They did say they have checked, and they've looked at the results of over 10 million drug tests. And between 2013 and 2016, the positive test for marijuana rose 75%. Those with employees.
The paradox about this to me is, when a company chooses to do drug testing for applicants, it's a broad spectrum, but the truth of the matter is cocaine and a couple other substances do not stay in your body the same way marijuana does. So you could have a hit of a joint or something, and that THC is going to linger
30 days or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's 2 or 3 weeks. And not funny, but the thing to me that's intriguing about that is, you know, Coke could be a much bigger problem. It's going to not show up.
So you do some blow on a Thursday night, take Friday off, by Monday you're okay?
Yeah, but marijuana, you have a hit, and you're going to be penalized for that down the road.
So they did talk to the people who own Burger King, and they haven't made any changes. Also, Ford Motor Company says they still consider marijuana an illegal drug. They said it's a big PR issue. And they said companies need to be careful about being political because they want to sell their products to the far left, the far right, the middle, everybody. And you don't want to do something like come out pro-marijuana for offending people. But I kind of called BS on that a little bit. That's the same logic they used to use with us with LGBT marketing. Oh, don't mention that you're pro-LGBT because you're going to offend some of your owners.
Yeah.
And our whole thing was, you know, if somebody who was offended, I'll use Subaru as the example, they probably weren't going to buy the car anyway because the makeup of the demographic of people who bought Subaru were pretty well educated and probably did not care that we were marketing to lesbian consumers.
I may have told this story before. I'm sure I did. But to me, it's one of the classic boardroom Tim Bennett Subaru stories. I came down to give a presentation, and it was 2 or 3 years into the campaign, and I was at one end of the table. You remember that boardroom? And you guys were all at the other. And at the end of the thing, Fred says, Tim, you tell John about some of the pushback we're getting. And you had to read a letter about how this guy he and his brother would go hunting in the SVX. They'd throw the deer carcass on the roof, and they'd come home. But now that tennis player,
Right.
lesbian,
You're using a pedophile and going to hell and all the
so you read
language.
this letter. You had this OP tag folder, and the letter was in the folder,
Full of
and
misspellings.
but you didn't tell me that. Like I'm
written
mortified.
in some sort of green ink.
So, all you guys though are stone-faced at the end of the table. And Fred is, what are we going to do about this pushback? And you read the letter, you closed the folder, and I didn't know what to say, and it was totally a gotcha moment. And then Fred smiles, you smile. Tim, you tell him where that letter came from.
It was the Nebraska Penitentiary, and it was some prison mate. Which the part I left out of the reading it was the guy was in for 20 to 25 years. I'm not in the market now, he says, but when I am. I'm not going to buy that car because of that pedophile you're using in your
So that goes all the way back to this fear of offending a consumer. He was, and everybody in the room laughed, and then Fred's like, he ain't buying a car for a long time.
I'm going to buy one anyway. And then one quick one, this one caught my eye. The headline was United Airlines saves 170,000 gallons of fuel by using lighter paper and in-flight magazines. So they have that Hemispheres magazine?
Whoa. How many gallons?
170,000 gallons of fuel by using lighter paper. So they said, it's almost like a pot reference. What difference does an ounce make?
I was going to say, an ounce can make a lot of difference, yeah.
So it says if you fly United Airlines, they have 4,500 flights a day. So they said an ounce can add up. The Chicago-based carrier said recently it began printing its in-flight magazine on lighter paper and cut 1 ounce off of each magazine. So the magazine now weighs 6.85 ounces. So in the internal message to employees, it said the lighter paper would also now be used. So they also decided after this success that lighter paper would also be used on all the service guides, how to get out, how to open the windows. They said they operate 744 planes of varying sizes every day. For a typical 737 plane carrying 179 passengers, it's 11 pounds per flight, times the 744 flights a day. On average, they said they've saved 170,000 gallons of fuel just by changing the paper on the magazine. And what made them do this is the prior year, they also stopped onboard sales of duty-free items. Remember, they come through with perfumes, chocolates, liquor.
Yes.
That cut 1.4 million gallons of fuel a year with a savings of $2.3 million by not dragging all that stuff up and down the aisle.
So I wonder if they went after Sky Mall. Remember the Sky Mall catalog?
That went out of business, supposedly.
It did go out, okay, because Sky Mall used to be like a Sears catalog in the back of your thing. You could buy a frog that lit up at night or spit water out. Or
That caught my eye because I had a friend, Roger Harris, who's a fan of ours, and he worked for Northwest Airlines back in the day, and that was his job, how to figure out how to cut weight on planes.
Drive cost,
So it was things like instead of doing this cookie, we'll do another cookie, because if we load up 100 of those cookies, we're going to save 2 ounces per whatever. I mean, it was down to that kind of minutia of fuel costs.
But that's almost an engineering.
Stuff you don't think about.
It's an engineering problem. Air flight is weight and fuel dependent, right?
So,
Wow.
So what caught your eye?
Well, I guess we didn't. Tim and I don't intentionally match up caught our eyes. We do it separately. But what caught my eye was a marijuana story. I guess it's all over the news, right?
Pop PR.
And it's taxes. Mine was about taxes in California. So a lot of Instagram pictures are popping up with sticker shock. So people go to a dispensary and they buy an ounce of marijuana. That's the highest amount you can buy in the state. Depending on how you do this, that gets you usually 40 joints. That's their average thing.
You can buy it once at one time.
Only for one visit, you can only do 1 ounce, and I think it might be in a day. So the pre-tax bill was $450. Then when the tax was added on, the bill went to $587.25. So the guy posted the receipt. A lot of people are complaining about this. So
About the tax? See, I don't buy the pot, so I don't know.
Well,
Is that a good price?
$4.50 for an ounce. Gosh, I can't even tell.
Do young kids know about the price of marijuana? Is that a good price?
It's like $50 an eighth, which is pretty normal, but not with the tax added on.
Yeah, you're, paying for a whole eighth. You're not getting there.
But you're getting it from a store with pretty containers and labels. And
That's true. Yeah, and if it's sativa or indica and all that.
Exactly.
That's legal, so that's the price of being legal.
Well, there you go.
Taxes,
And
legal
in
tax.
fact, so the hefty taxes are drawing complaints from some business owners and policy analysts who argue that the tariffs will keep the state's massive black market for marijuana alive and well. Valid point.
Yeah.
If you're that cost sensitive, look, in my world, I say I like the idea of being able to go into a legitimate operation, talk to somebody. Oh, why don't you try bubble gum? It's the new sativa, whatever, and I'll pay the tax because the legitimacy
I
of
don't
it.
want to get caught buying it on the street.
Sidebar: when I first moved to the city years ago, and my roommate was Greg. One day, Greg says, "Hey, let's go to the city and get a little dime bag of weed." We go to Washington Square Park. We buy this little bag. We get home. We smoke it. Nothing happens. It was grass, literally cut grass, like someone put cut grass shavings into a plastic bag.
They saw you two Wonder Breads coming.
So I will pay tax for this. Where do the taxes go? All cannabis legally sold in California now comes with a 15% excise tax. On its own, that rate is in line with or below the tax imposed in most other states that have legalized recreational cannabis. So it's not like the tax is out of whack. I think it makes sense. And a lot of people are saying, hold the line. This is not a problem. It will evaporate in a few months when people get used to it. They're just not used to seeing it on a receipt. That's all.
Okay.
Now, I had two other quick visual ones, so I'm going to walk you through this if you're listening on the audio podcast. BuzzFeed had this stream of 9 different pictures, and the headline of the article was, "Feel free to laugh as long as you want." And Bob and I had 2 favorites. One of them is this picture of a woman, or someone made this clay sculpture of a head, and it's really detailed and nice. So on the left is the actual sculpture. And then on the right is the picture of the sculpture after it falls and lands on its face. It's just basically mushed in. Look at that.
It looks like that I Love Lucy sculpture in Jamestown that one guy did, doesn't it?
And the other one is a GIF, and it's a little animated thing. It's a woman sitting on a dock, and she's having her picture taken. And as she moves, now you see it, Tim, her iPhone slips out of her pocket and rests ever so briefly on the dock and then slips through one of the cracks right into the water.
See, when I saw this, I didn't know that
You didn't know it was animated.
A video. I thought it was going to be something about cheap high heels.
And yeah, because there's those blue pumps. And the headline for this one was, "Just put it in rice." You know how people say, just throw it in a bag with...
Well, she's not going to get under that dock and get...
No, it's, look, boom, gone.
Uh-oh.
I thought you might enjoy that. So if you're listening, if you're only audio, I hope I described that correctly.
Wow. Okay. Business birthday.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
So Dov Charney's birthday is today. He's 49 years old. He looks like he might have forgot the one in front of it. But he's...
Or the one after.
or the one after it. He's a Canadian businessman of Jewish descent, born in Quebec, so he's got full pedigree. He's known for founding American Apparel, where he served as CEO from 1989 until 2014. He was kicked out for a number of alleged sexual harassment.
And when you say a number, it's not a small.
one or two.
It's not 1 or 2 or 3 or 4.
He was
Yeah,
quite a character, and he has since started another brand called Los Angeles Apparel, which is exactly like American Apparel, but it's just called Los Angeles
You think
Apparel.
that's like a poke in the eye?
Yeah. So what he did, which is interesting, he had this fascination. He says, as a Canadian, he was an admirer of American-made products, which I find odd.
You're Canadian. Well, your family's
I was
Canadian.
family's Canadian.
Do you like American? Yeah, you like
I
Lincoln
don't know if I had a fascination, but he said that, so he went to school at Choate Rosemary in Connecticut, and he started his first venture when he was in high school. He started importing Hanes and Fruit of the Loom T-shirts across the border from the U.S. into Canada, and he got up to taking U-Hauls of stuff. He said, I would take 10,000 shirts at a time into Canada in the summer and sell them. So that's how he got involved. Hanes and Fruit of the Loom.
He couldn't have picked...
So then he enrolled in Tufts in 1987. His business was still going. He dropped out of Tufts, borrowed $10,000 from Dad, went to South Carolina, and decided to not import and just manufacture.
And thus was born
American Apparel. He became the largest garment apparel manufacturer in the U.S. And he said it was his aim to build the American Apparel brand to live beyond his lifetime. He went bankrupt in 96, refixed himself up after Chapter 11, went to in 97, moved to L.A., And he said, now we're going to be a heritage brand, and we're going to be liberty. He said it's like liberty, property, pursuit of happiness, and every other thing that's America. So he eventually got up to 6,700 employees, stores in 13 different countries. And there's a link, which can do better than me to describe, and we'll talk about afterwards.
John's working away on the link.
Like a 60-second link.
American Apparel Dov Charney sees himself. And it seems that's the bit that's gotten the founder of the American Apparel super brand fired.
I want to film this. Oh yeah, I'm dancing right now for Daisy.
Not too long ago, a hilarious video caught Charney prancing around in the buff, shaking his man bits for two women. They don't really seem to mind, and even better is he tells the person he's talking to on the phone that he's dancing for Daisy, to some talking heads. Anyways, for Charney getting fired, it's not really about this particular video. He's been part of some lewd acts before, but it appears his rap sheet of sexual misconduct has finally reached the saturation point. Combine that with a steadily stumbling stock, and it all spells out time to go. Anyway, in the end, like Charney said himself, he's a bit of a dirty guy. Scantily clad models and mannequins with nuclear pubic hair may represent Charney's exuberant libido, but many say you gotta look beyond that and see the whole Charney. At least give him some props for being socially responsible. As the founder of Standpoint Research put it, he had mannequins with pubic hair, a 60-year-old lingerie model, a Playboy mansion full of 18-year-old girls. It overshadowed all the good he was trying to do. He wasn't paying workers in Bangladesh $2 a day, he was paying $10, $15 an hour in Los Angeles. He's very stubborn, utopian, idealistic.
So he got kicked out. He said a lot of it was consensual. He said the girls didn't mind. So they also show it. They take you through the house. He's got condoms all over the place. The beds.
His house.
Yeah, it's like a dorm. So he lives in this place called the Garbutt House in L.A., which was built by an oil and aviation industrialist, Frank Garbutt, who was petrified of earthquakes and fire. So it's all the cement bunker, essentially, is what it is. And he lives there, and they said he treats it like a dormitory. He has lots of people from work that live there. And he's gotten in trouble a few times, so he erected a huge sculpture of a middle finger flipping off L.A., which is in the front of the house. And so they talked to him more. So he goes bankrupt, and he reconstitutes himself and starts this LA apparel brand in 2017.
Then, because the first one was under American Apparel, and then he's kicked out, et cetera. Now
he's called it a shakedown. He said everything. And so this woman in the interview says to him, you know, do you think people are going to believe you now? You've had all these sexual allegations, off millions of dollars he lost in lawsuits. He said people still listen to Michael Jackson. Was his comeback to her. He was sued by Woody Allen for $10 million because he took stills from the movie Annie Hall, and they settled for $5 million. So at the very end of it, he left us with this, and this is his quote, John. I didn't make this up. He says, "I'm a pussy fanatic, but I've got great ethics, and sleeping with people you work with is just unavoidable. I'm a bit of a dirty guy." Happy birthday!
It should be a ba-dum-bum.
Happy birthday, Dov.
Well, you told me at lunch, you said, I've got a business birthday you're going to love.
You know, he's 49.
Oh, God bless.
Looked a little old.
Was that my grandmother used to say, God bless? God bless. Yeah. Two things one little programming note. Tim and I are launching an addition to our audio stream next week called the Focus Group Unbuttoned. It is a spontaneous 20-minute, no-holds-barred dive into politics, pop culture, whatever comes to our minds. It's going to be weekly, and it will drop on Tuesdays, I believe, but it's audio. And we've done a couple already, and the response has been terrific, and we have fun doing it, so stay tuned for that.
15 to 18 minutes.
I said 20.
Oh, did you? Okay.
But you're right. We
didn't hear the 20 part.
You're still stuck with Dov Charney and his house with the middle finger on the front lawn. Hey, Deep Discount has been a partner of ours here on the Focus Group for a while. We love working with them, and we want to thank you for shopping at their site. It supports us as well. To shop at Deep Discount, visit focusgroupradio.com. Click on the shark logo. Arr! I always do the pirate with the shark. I do not know why, but
you do.
But I do, and it's like this tick thing. So this week at Deep Discount, we want to let you know about a couple things that are going on. First, for Focus Group listeners, Deep Discount's giving us a code for the month of February to give you guys 15% off your order. It's a one-time use code, and the code is FG15, FG15 for Focus Group 15. Again, it's a one-time use only. I would say collect all your titles, put them all together, stock up, take the 15% off. You'll probably get free shipping. and then order away. So this week is TV sale. That's TV series, TV shows. Before Tim, you have a choice.
Okay.
You can either choose. I chose 2 series to talk about.
Of course you did.
You could either choose the science fiction one or the one that's down on Earth.
Who can?
You could choose. Tell me which one I'm going to talk about.
Let's do something non-sci-fi with you for a change.
Okay. Then, John, we're going to skip ahead to a show called Black Sails. This I want to see because a friend of mine turned me onto the show and he loves it. And it basically is a show that has been crafted around Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island. Remember, we all read Treasure Island as a kid, right? It's about pirates. Arr, it's perfect for deep discount. Arr, the shark. So the show takes place prior to the events of Treasure Island, and it's called Black Sails, and it takes place in the West Indies, and it follows someone called Captain Flint, who has a bad reputation throughout the golden age of the pirates. So it's set in 1715. It's the whole pirate thing, and it's going into its 2nd season. It may actually already have finished its 2nd season, come to think of it. But my friend Alex swears by it, and he says, you got to put that on your list. You got to watch Black Sails. You're going to like it.
You haven't watched it?
I watched 1 episode, and I actually enjoyed it. I thought the casting was good, and I liked the production value. So,
does it take place in the here and now, or is it some dystopian thing where there's no water back in
1715?
Okay.
So it takes place in the
I like that.
in the not now, but in the past, but here on Earth. It's not sci-fi.
like that.
So I highly recommend checking out at least season 1. Get it on Blu-ray if you can. It really looks spectacular on Blu-ray. Of Black Sails.
That was 1715.
1715, yeah.
Well, I picked something that happened only a couple years later, the Andy Griffith Show. So I'm a closet Andy Griffith watcher. I don't know if you know that. And you used to make fun of me on SiriusXM.
Our old
Matt
producer
would play the Andy Griffith theme.
You would get on your soapbox, and then you'd start pontificating about something.
It's one of the shows that I will, if I click through and it's good, I'll watch. And I laugh.
Sure.
And I had an old boss who was very religious with the Church of the Nazarene, and he had told me it was the only show that was approved by the church that they could watch. And so
The only show?
So I had so I revisited it after he told me that. And he would talk about it all the time, like the kids, they would watch it as a family because it was such wholesome watching.
A morality show.
The one thing that I could equate it to was a show that we loved as kids, Davy and Goliath. So it does have that same kind of folksy, oh gosh, gee, what you do, you killed the bird, uh-oh.
What would God say,
Yeah,
Davy?
what would you do? So I still watch it, though. I laugh about it. And the series here, it's on sale at deep discount. It's a great price.
Complete? That's the complete
series, which is 39 different
episodes.
39 different pieces in the sleeve. It's $60.33, which is a great price for it. But it's one of those things that, yes, you can find it on TV sometimes. My problem on TV now, they stretch these things to 40 minutes. So they do an extra 10 minutes of ads. So the 23 minutes becomes 40 minutes. So you get 20 minutes of ads, which drives me crazy, so I won't watch it.
Yeah.
So this is a good way to pick it up. And if you want something folksy and wholesome, I think is a good thing to have.
There you go.
What was the new release this week?
I'm glad you suggested. So we both went back in time, 1715,
right,
a few years later.
1720.
The new release this week is for a show called Ray Donovan Season 5. And Liev Schreiber plays Ray Donovan. It's a show I've been meaning to watch. So he plays a fixer. So I've read this term before a couple times. Like he's a fixer in Los Angeles. And
Steve Bannon. Wasn't he a fixer?
Do you guys know Ray Donovan? Oh, yeah, Allie does.
Like one of my favorite shows.
So what is a fixer then?
He just like cleans up the messes. So like if someone kills someone, like a celebrity or whatever they are
comes
in, and he's like, leave, I'll take care of it or whatever.
It's got some amazing guest casts, like Susan Sarandon's been on, Lily Simmons, Thomas Howell, Donald Faison. I mean, it's a show I probably should watch, right?
Yes.
And if Allie's watching it, then I need to start watching.
And then also there's like, he has his shirt off and like, oh my God, he's like the hottest guy alive.
So it appeals to you, it will appeal to me on that level too.
Oh my God, yeah. Especially when he's wading through like a swimming pool at night. It's just...
All right. Now, I think that the new release is on my list, but I'm going to go back to season 1 then. This is the new release of season 5, but I think we have to start at 1. So it's Ray Donovan. All right. So I want to remind everybody again that for the month of February 1 to the 28th, our listeners get a special coupon code, FG15, 15% off your order, but as a one-time use only. So let's recap what we went through. Tim let me do Down to Earth. I did Black Sails, which is I think it's 2 seasons long now, show about pirates that takes place right before Treasure Island, loosely based on Robert Louis Stevenson's famous book. And you picked?
I picked Andy Griffith, and the new release this week is Ray Donovan Season 5. We're going to post the coupon codes as well on our social media. If you follow along our Facebook or other social media at Focus Group Radio, be sure to go to focusgroupradio.com, check or click on the deep discount logo, stock up, and use the code FG15 and get the sale through February. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we've got Stuart Elliott joining us. He's with MediaVillage.com, and he had an article that just came out today regarding the Super Bowl and the advertising, and the headline was, "Will Super Bowl ads truly be super?" And we're going to have Stuart answer that question for us, and we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Introducing the Volkswagen Atlas, large enough to handle everything from the daily carpool to a weekend adventure. It comes standard with 7 seats and an easy-access third row that features class-leading legroom. The Atlas is filled with features and technology designed to help its occupants connect. From Volkswagen CarNet App Connect to available features like an 8-inch glass touchscreen display and the VW digital cockpit. With available 4Motion all-wheel drive, you can switch between 4 different all-wheel drive modes to the one that fits your current driving situation. Also, the Atlas is backed with America's best bumper-to-bumper limited warranty. The all-new Volkswagen Atlas. Life's as big as you make it.
Brought to you by Volkswagen. Visit VW.com to learn more. Focus on the savvy side of 9 to 5 with the Focus Group.
Try, really try.
Listen, laugh, and learn with Tim and John.
I never try anything. I just do it.
Welcome back to Focus Group. John Nash with Tim Bennett. Sitting next to us, the rose between 2 thorns.
Yes.
Is none other than Stuart Elliott of Media Village. Stuart, though, is not just with Media Village. He is well, we were like the godhead of advertising in the New York Times. I mean, if you made the column, if Stuart talked, your name appeared. It was like your email.
The Oprah of advertising.
Your email exploded. You made the column, the column. So welcome, Stuart.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Before we get into Super Bowl and the efficacy of advertising in an event this big, which I err on the side of saying I'm sure it does something with moving the needle, I wanted to ask you something about your bio. You know, Robert Osborne passed away not too long ago, and one of my favorites from Turner Classic Movies. I had no idea that you co-hosted a night of movies with him.
Yes, I did. In 2009, I was fortunate enough to go down to Atlanta and tape a series of intros and outros with him for a night of programming. It was devoted to movies about advertising.
Do you remember what the movies were at all?
Let me think what the movies
that's a hard one.
I was going to say, what would they be?
Well, it was about advertising, but from a larger perspective, also talking about television and the whole thing. One movie was A Face in the Crowd.
Sure, great movie.
Which is an incredible movie about with Andy Griffith to tie in what you were talking about before. He plays a Southern entertainer who rises up and becomes sort of a national demagogue using television as a medium.
Where have we seen that one before?
Yeah,
right?
and it's only about 60 years ahead of You-Know-Who. I mean, 60 years before You-Know-Who. And really great movie. If you've never seen it, you should check it out.
Did you get to spend time with Robert Osborne, though?
Yeah.
And how was he?
He was great. He's just very
He was like you expect
charming,
him to be?
polite. Yeah, exactly like you expected. He was nice. He was friendly. He was businesslike, but definitely tried to put us at our ease. There were 2 or 3 of us one-shot Charlies who were there to tape a night of programs with him that would be shown weeks or months later on the channel. So yeah, he was just so nice to set of SETREs. And,
Was that one of those calls that just came in and you're like, oh, or was this something you pursued?
Well, I think it was because I'd written about, in writing about advertising, I cast such a wide net. I would write about all sorts of different things. So I'd write about movies about advertising and the way media looked at advertising. And I do stuff about TV shows and so on and so forth. And that got on the radar of the people at TCM, and they got in touch with me.
Wow.
So a random thing, I've known your bio for a long time, but for some reason that was on the Robert Osborne.
That's the first
thing.
I'd seen that too.
Yeah. And so now you're at Media Village.
Well, I'm a freelancer now. I left the Times in 2014, and I freelance for a variety of publications, and Media Village is first among them, I guess you could say.
There should have been like a funeral parade when you left the Times. There should have been I don't know if you read the social media comments back when it was your last days of the Times. It was
absolutely, yeah, it was quite an outpouring.
Accolades.
It was astonishing.
And if a coffin came down with a black draped thing
well,
on it.
I wouldn't quite put it. I wouldn't be that apocalyptic about it. I'm still here. I'm writing for MediaVillage.com. I'm writing for a magazine called CBS Watch. I do a column there about famous old advertising campaigns and why we still love them, and moderating panels here and there, and doing speaking engagements and so on and so forth.
Is there one old campaign that we really all love? There's the one that comes to the top of your mind.
Well, I mean, I used to say Budweiser, but it's sort of changed so much now because of the changes in the beer market and the different attitude people have about drinking and about big beer and versus craft beer and all that. So it's sort of
wow, that's a great point. That's evolved too.
You know,
right?
I mean that's and just recently Budweiser fell out of first place after about 50 years of being in 50 years of being in first place in beer sales.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Who went?
Bud Light is #1 now.
Okay.
And then I think Coors Light and Miller Light, and now Budweiser's #4.
Wow.
So it's kind of like what happened with Diet Coke taking over from Coke and.
No.
Didn't Diet Coke?
No.
I thought Diet Coke was the #1. No.
No, it isn't. Coca-Cola's still #1.
Still, okay.
Diet Coke took over from Pepsi.
Okay.
Okay.
But I don't know if that's still the case because diet soda sales are falling now, I think, faster than the sugar soda sales. So.
Well, that leads us to the Super Bowl conversation. Maybe that might be one of the first.
That's a good segue.
I mean, well,
as good a segue as any.
I was going to say it might be because this was one of my questions with the soda brands, for instance, because they are struggling, right? All of the sugary beverages, and I thought to myself, I could enjoy a Pepsi ad or a soda ad on the Super Bowl, but I don't drink soda. So I'll never buy it. So if you're Pepsi or you're Coke or one of the other sugar brands, why would you? First,
well, the Diet Coke's going to be on the Super Bowl also.
So they are going to be on the Super Bowl.
And then in previous years, Pepsi has not run Pepsi. They've run Diet Pepsi or Pepsi Zero or whatever they call it. So, I mean, they mix and match just like the beer companies where they run different craft beers or low-calorie beers or regular beers or this beer or that beer. Michelob Ultra is going to be on the Super Bowl this year again.
But that was my question. For me, I don't think it's going to. So me seeing them there, I'm not going to buy.
Right, but I mean, that's the whole story about advertising in a nutshell. I mean, why do people advertise?
So that's why.
And they advertise because they want to get you to buy your product and buy their product. And of course, in certain cases, it's a moot point because you're not going to buy that product no matter how much advertising you see for it. But on the other hand, in most cases, most people are buying most things, and in most of those cases, they are maybe persuadable or influenceable or willing to listen to a pitch or willing to consider another brand or another price of a product if they're buying something, and there's advertising.
Right.
So, I mean, it goes back to the very basic nature of why a company will advertise in the first place, and it's magnified for the Super Bowl because the Super Bowl has become the biggest day of the year for advertising.
Christmas.
As well as for football. It's sort of like, well, I mean, there's still Christmas.
Yeah, but
but it's
advertising.
Day, whereas Christmas is really from Thanksgiving to Christmas Eve is like a month of advertising. I would say that on a tonnage basis, Christmas is still the biggest occasion of the year for advertising, but if you talk about one day of the year, it's clearly Super Bowl Sunday.
Now, you sent out a fun tweet yesterday about Volkswagen's The Force spot, the Darth Vader spot.
Right, I retweeted an article from, I think it was Adweek. They were looking back on the Super Bowl ads and talked about how the Force commercial from Volkswagen in 2011 was, in retrospect, such a big game changer because it sort of kicked off this idea of people releasing their Super Bowl commercials early ahead of time, which had never been done pretty much prior to Volkswagen's decision to do that.
But it's still an ad that tracks high as one of the favorite Super Bowl
spots. It's the all-time, I think it's still the all-time most watched Super Bowl commercial on YouTube. So
really,
so from an advertising holy grail point of view, the alchemy of that spot, whatever went into making it, seems to have checked all the boxes. You may or may not be in market for a car, but you might like Star Wars. You're going to remember it. I mean, it does seem to do what a Super Bowl spot has to do.
Kids and puppies.
Kids and
You've always said that, right, Stuart?
And celebrities and music and talking animals and surprise endings and that kind of thing.
So
there's certain formulas in Super Bowl advertising that seem to work over and over, yeah.
So what's a 30-second spot cost this year?
About $5 million.
So it goes up $1 million every year?
Well, no, I think it was about $5 million last year or 2 years ago. It's sort of the rate of increase has slowed only because it was going up so fast, so much so fast for a few years there. So it's sort of plateaued at this point in time. And it's going to be interesting to see what the audience is going to be, because clearly big event television has been losing viewership of late. Obviously, the Grammys, the
Golden Globes, the
TV,
Grammys,
the playoffs, the playoffs, the NFL playoffs. Yeah. So there've been lower ratings in the last year or two for a lot of these big event shows. They still have the biggest audiences of anything that's on television, but the size of the audiences has been diminishing along with the audiences for everything else on television.
So if you did a 60-second spot, then you're looking at $10 million about.
And production and promotion and so on and so forth, yeah.
So who's, so the question John and I had was, is anybody, you mentioned Volkswagen and people releasing stuff early, and there was always so much hype. I would say in the last 5 years, there was lots of hype about Super Bowl and what was going on in the advertising. And we get emails every morning, like a lot of people do that follow the ad and marketing industry. To me, it seems like there's no noise this year about the Super Bowl from a advertising standpoint, or at least it doesn't feel as
frenetic
as it used to be. Is that just our imagination, or?
I don't know. I've talked about this with some people, and I think one thing was it started later this year for some reason. I think the hoopla started a little bit later than usual. Within the last few days, there've been a number of commercials that have started been released early, and the sort of somebody very diligently, I think Newsday actually compared with previous years and said it's not that much different from previous years in terms of the commercials getting publicized before the game and being released before the game and so on and so forth. But I would guess, plus or minus 10%.
Right.
I think the couple of big issues is, number one, is the Trump effect. Trump is sucking all the oxygen out of the room about everything. So he's either turning every discussion into a discussion that involves him, or talking about him and what he does and what he says and what he tweets and what the administration is doing or not doing is affecting everybody's ability to pay any attention to everything else. So I think that the Super Bowl ads are being affected by that, because in the normal days, when there really wasn't much going on in a January per se, the Super Bowl ads were like this.
They were news.
It was news because there was less other things going on, whereas now every minute of every day is all Trump all the time. And if you remember last year's Super Bowl, there are a number of commercials that took advantage of that by being topical and addressing issues like immigration, and one of them made a joke about his hair and so on and so forth. So whether that's going to happen again this year or not is going to be of interest. But I think the Super Bowl ads have fallen victim to
Trump
along with
effect.
everything
The
else,
Trump
the Trump
effect.
effect. And then I think another issue is that in a very sort of parochial kind of a way, in the past, the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal used to write in their print editions extensively about the Super Bowl ads during the month of January in the run-up to.
You used to do a whole grid.
I used to, no. Well, the grid was before, right? Was the Friday before the game.
Right.
But I'm saying the month of January,
Those
as
stories.
commercials came out or as
Right.
things were released, I would do stories. So I'd do like 10 or 12 columns before the Super Bowl. There is no ad column in the New York Times anymore, except on Mondays.
Yep.
The Wall Street Journal, I don't believe, has a print advertising column any longer either. There is a blog that they do online called CMO Today, where they're covering the Super Bowl pretty extensively, but that's online. So the national media, the broadcast media, TV and radio, and all those folks use the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal as tip sheets to direct their coverage and to
even think about
be
covering
inspired to cover stories. So if the Journal and the Times aren't writing about the Super Bowl as much as they used to, maybe channel WXXX in Walla Walla or whatever is not running their Super Bowl ad features like they used to. I don't know. That's just speculation. Obviously, USA
frankly,
Today is still covering it.
Yeah, but
and they're still doing their ad meter, but. That means there's one national newspaper doing it instead of 3.
You nailed. I think there are 2 excellent issues there. I think the Trump effect is a huge one, and I think you're right. When a paper as big as the paper of record, the Times, does not do a normal column covering advertising and marketing, others don't. It's not the butterfly effect. Nobody's picking it up, right?
Yeah.
So that's
and you mentioned in your column today, which came out, will Super Bowl ads truly
MediaVillage.com.
MediaVillage.com. No, but this Trump effect thing, which, I didn't think about until you brought it up, was essentially last night, if anybody watched State of the Union address, he essentially put the NFL on notice about the whole national anthem thing. Right, and you said all we need is for there to be a protest at the game with somebody with the national anthem.
All we need. No, I'm saying all we need is for Trump to tweet about it, whether or not anything happens. There doesn't have to be a protest for him to tweet on that subject. All we need is for him to tweet 4 hours before the game, and off we go to chase that, and nobody will care anything about any of the ads.
Yep.
So
it's unbelievable.
I'm sure all the advertisers are holding their breath right now about him and that again, the Trump effect.
So, have you seen most of the ads already?
No. It's been.
Really? I mean, because in the past we used to have Stuart on. He was embargoed. We were embargoed. We couldn't use the word Super Bowl.
Well, that was when I was the columnist at the New York Times also, and there was a daily ad column, and a lot of the releasing of the ads and such was dictated by my ability to cover them and what I was writing about and what day it could be and who else I'm writing. So that's all gone. So that changes the
whole game.
It changes the whole game. But there are a number of commercials that have come out since last Wednesday or Thursday. I'd say maybe about a dozen. I've seen about a dozen, and there's a list here. I brought it with me of about
and one in
45, 50. Well, I don't want to talk. I don't like to talk about them before.
We've asked you for 7 years, 8 years. We had you don't ever do it.
There's about let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. 25. I have about 40 names. I have names of about 40 advertisers already, and that's going to be pretty close to the
full roster.
Who's new this year?
New this year, Amazon Prime Video, Intuit.
Yeah, that's the
a company called Monster Products, which makes, I think, headphones and things.
Cables and I know Monster.
And Pringles.
No, that's one spot that we saw.
Yeah, and I wasn't quite thrilled by that one. It was okay. It was okay.
I think
it was Bill Hader. No, that's Bill Hader.
Bill Hader's in it, yeah.
It was with Bill Hader, and it's about the idea that you could eat different flavors of Pringles and stack them together and make a fun flavor combination. And the commercial takes place at the craft services table at I guess he's making a movie or something. So it's sort of like a little inside baseball kind of a thing. And I don't know how many people watching the Super Bowl are going to be familiar with the craft services table.
See, I didn't know it was
at a movie on a movie set, and it seems like everybody who makes the commercials familiar with that, but are the American public that buys Pringles familiar with that? I don't know.
Yeah, see, I didn't know that was. I actually liked that commercial.
Oh, you did?
I'll tell you why. Because I don't buy Pringles. I eat them at the mini bar when I'm at a hotel. It's usually the only little can in there. But I thought for a couple of bucks, I would try doing the jalapeno on the pizza flavored one. Maybe.
God bless them. Then it was worth it.
But I didn't know. I didn't even pay attention that it was probably the craft services table, which you're right, totally inside baseball thing. But that's the one where I thought, okay, I don't buy that product. I don't consume it, but I might try it if I saw it and I'd laugh.
Then it doesn't matter what I thought. I mean, if they get some guy like you multiplied by a few 100,000, a few million to do it, then it's accomplished. Then it's mission accomplished.
You know, one that we saw that Tim had sent me a list. Was it Ad Age had put the
what's been released thus far.
One of them was for Lexus.
Yes, with the tie-in with the new movie Black Panther.
Marvel, and I I often wonder about that, the tie-in, because if the tie-in doesn't work, or if you're not a big fan, you might turn off half that messaging. If you don't know who Black Panther is, or that comic book character is being brought to life, the superhero, that's all lost on you. And
right, but you're also on the other side of the coin. You're riding the coattails of tens of millions of dollars worth of publicity that Marvel Studios is unleashing to promote that movie.
Correct. So hopefully, if you're a CMO, the multiplier
by Sunday,
effect.
Hopefully, enough people will have either heard about the movie or are looking forward to the movie. I think I read somewhere that Fandango is saying there are big advance ticket sales already for it. So that could be a home run if Lexus picked the right cultural zeitgeist moment to glom onto with their commercial.
And actually, you just basically answered what I was going to ask, because that's the big question when a creative director or a team puts a spot like that together and they decide to align with a hero movie and the millions of multiplier effect dollars that might get spent. It's really a crapshoot, isn't it?
Well, first of all, any movie being made is a crapshoot, because William Goldman famously said nobody knows anything in Hollywood when it comes to making a movie. So, I mean, the idea you do surveys, you do research, you look at what people are thinking about and talking about, and then you put this movie into production. And is something like this going to resonate with people 18 months from now, or 12 months from now, or 24 months from now? Who knows? And then on top of that, it's like all the advertisers that tie in for promotional campaigns. Is that movie going to be a hit? Is everybody going to run and see it? Well, you could do research again, and this and that and the other. And it's a big crapshoot every time. I mean, every time, even movies that you think are guaranteed to be huge successes. And then on the other side of the coin, you had like The Greatest Showman, which everyone was very fast to write off as a flop, but it's accumulated revenue at the box office, and it's past $100 million.
Hugh Jackman
the
movie.
Hugh Jackman musical, which everybody said, oh, nobody's going to go see a Hugh Jackman original musical, and it turned out to be a success now.
What we call a slow burner.
Yeah. So
we're talking with Stuart Elliott about the Super Bowl and all the big ads that'll be happening this weekend. He's Stuart's with MediaVillage.com. Be sure to check out his column there. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk some more Super Bowl and some advertising in general with Stuart. So stay with us.
Brought to you by Volkswagen. Visit VW.com to learn more. Now back to the Focus Group with Tim and John.
Because he has a lot of chutzpah.
An entertaining look at the world of business.
Heads are spinning, heads are spinning.
Listen, laugh, and learn.
I am not gay. I never have been gay.
That's perverse.
These are gay ads this year.
Welcome back to the Focus Group. John Nash with Tim Bennett, and we're joined by the one and only Stuart Elliott, and we're continuing our Super Bowl conversation. You just asked something I was going to ask you, right?
You can ask, because I thought I didn't know we were on.
Let's go. Go ahead.
No, is there any LGBT in the past years? There was lots of controversy or some talk about LGBT themed ads. Is there anything this year that we know of?
I haven't seen anything yet, but that doesn't mean there won't be. Sometimes those are the ones that get held back till the game
for the surprise effect.
For the surprise value, like the Coca-Cola commercial, America is Beautiful, which is run, I guess, on a couple of Super Bowls now, where one of the vignettes included a gay family.
Right. What is?
You're going to be watching the game, right?
I always do. This is going to be I think it's going to be my either 29th or 30th Super Bowl watching the commercials.
Are you going to be live blogging at all, or?
Well, I'll be tweeting probably. There's only so many things you can do at the same time.
What's your Twitter handle?
It's Stuart ENYT, with of course the @ sign in front of it. So
Stuart ENYT.
So I recommend all our listeners tune into that
during the game.
During the game, yeah.
Will you tell us what you think then?
Yes,
When
I
he had
do.
runs? Okay.
I start to reveal my thoughts.
Look at this ongoing thing with Stuart. This love-hate. He's been on.
Well, the problem in the past was I couldn't.
I know you couldn't. But
I couldn't
you can
talk
give us a
before my
wink.
column came out in the Times. But for Media Village, the column came out. The preview column came out today. So I've lifted my own embargo.
Are you looking
Free to
forward to
talk.
seeing anything in particular?
I like to see all of them. I mean, like they say, I love all my children. I mean, it's a fascinating day. It's like a crazy, fun day where the whole country is looking at ads and looking forward to ads, and they're not bragging about zipping and zapping ads like they do the other 364 days of the year when people say, I never pay attention to ads, I never watch commercials, I do this, I do that, I hate them, blah, 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 blah. On Super Bowl Sunday, it's the exact opposite. Everybody says, shh, the ads are coming on, be quiet. So God bless. I think it's a great opportunity to see what Madison Avenue has to offer and what they think is their best foot forward. And half the country, a third to a half of the country is tuned in. So it's a very strange, wonderful phenomenon. That's been going on now for 35, 36 years, ever since the Apple commercial, the 1984
Famous
Apple commercial ran in 1984, and advertisers got the idea that, hey, let's make these special commercials or debut commercials on Super Bowl Sunday.
Did you watch the Grammys this year?
I dipped in and out.
Because you had mentioned earlier about, and I haven't watched network TV in a while. I started thinking about it. I don't watch any network shows, but I'll watch cable stuff. And I watched the Grammys, and I thought the commercials were better than the actual show. And there were some great music commercials that they did that matched up. And I was wondering, with Grammys, Olympics, and other big events, whether it's Oscars or other things, are you finding with advertising that they're spending more time for these bigger marquee events rather than...
Yes. There are a number of advertisers now that are doing a big event television program or plan or whatever you want to call it. They're saying, look, we see the handwriting on the wall. The average person is watching less live TV. They're not paying attention to commercials. They go around boasting about how they never see ads and they don't want to see ads and so on and so forth. So a lot of these companies have decided, well, we'll focus our attention on the big events that people watch live, where they're much less likely to DVR and zip or zap the commercials. And as part of that, we will give them special, different, better than usual commercials as a thank you for sitting there and watching the program live. So that's been going on, obviously, in the Super Bowl for over 35 years, and also the Oscars and the Grammys and the Olympics and sometimes the Emmys, sometimes the MTV Music Awards.
Someone was asking me about my career in advertising, and I recently finished a 2-year character animation school program. And what I learned a lot from that, but what I learned is we're all storytellers at one level or another. And is Madison Avenue doing a good job of coming up with original, clever, and fun stories that are told in 30 seconds? In other words, are these, so Super Bowl is a class of spot, the Grammys is these big marquee things, but Are the agencies coming up with clever, fun, and innovative and memorable ways to promote their clients?
Well, they are, but less so than usual. And the other big issue.
What's the less so than usual?
Well, the less so usual is because you don't have people watching. You don't have as many people watching the same things at the same time anymore.
Like the old 3 network.
Clearly that's been declining for decades. But obviously, it's accelerating now at a rapid clip because of streaming and other things. And as a result, there's less talk about what it used to be that people used to talk about. Oh, what about this ad? What about that ad? Oh, this character annoys me, or I love this what's the song in this commercial? Everybody in America would say, what's the song in that commercial? And that still happens. Yeah. It still happens with Apple. I mean, the irony, the delicious irony is that so many of the giant tech companies that are responsible for driving TV out of business focus so much of their advertising spending on television, like Apple and Google and Amazon and a lot of these companies. If you watch network television or even a cable network at night, and you see all the commercials are either for phone, for cell phone, either service or hardware, and a lot of tech companies advertising day and night. So, I mean, you still get, people will still talk about, oh, what's that song in the Apple ad? Or who's that actor? Oh, that actor, he's in 3 commercials right now.
But I guess that
it's a lot less than usual because the fragmenting of the audience has continued.
That's
and
the
it
key.
gets more and more, it's getting more and more fragmented, and people are watching streaming video where there aren't any ads at all.
So
I mean,
unfortunately, Clara Peller would never exist today.
Well,
where's the beef?
She would, but there'd be a lot less. It would probably take a lot longer for it to become a national catchphrase, or maybe it wouldn't. It wouldn't. Maybe there'd be a market for it. They'd be like people that like to buy fast food hamburgers would be laughing about it and wearing.
But we
where's the beef T-shirts? But a presidential candidate may not necessarily say the line in a debate because it wouldn't have gotten to that level of ubiquity.
Right, but the Budweiser has pushed that dilly dilly thing.
And there's an example. I mean, you see people talking about dilly dilly. So,
which I had no idea what it was. And
you
then
could say that, wow, you know, the volume of advertising that Budweiser runs, Bud Light run during the football season has done that. Well, but that's what it used to do in the old days, and it's still you can still do it. You can still do it, but it's harder. It's less visible. It takes longer for it to break through,
percolate up,
and in a lot of cases, there are millions and millions of people who are never ever going to see it firsthand. Maybe if they hear you talking about dilly dilly, they might hop over to YouTube and watch. Watch it and see it there, but they're not going to see it on TV during a break.
Yeah, interesting challenges, right?
I was disappointed that there's no Clydesdales this year with Budweiser.
Well, now they're saying there may be. As soon as I read that story that said they weren't going to be any Clydesdales, I said, I bet they're just pulling a little publicity
the Clydesdales
trap here. And sure enough, yesterday, there was something, I didn't read the whole thing, but it said, oh, well, guess what? There may be Clydesdales after all.
Because they released a digital ad, which was, to me, was very Trumpish. It was about beer country, and it was the Clydesdales going, and it was kind of a walk around America.
That may be it then.
And it was like, this is beer country, and I thought, this is really almost kind of like a rock sort of, you know.
Yeah.
Well, there are millions of people out there. I mean, there was a big debate last year where there were going to be 1 million commercials on the Super Bowl celebrating the Trump voter in the middle of the country and middle America and so on and so forth. And there were a couple, but that was about it. And the rest of the commercials were, we love immigrants, we love women, don't resist, we love our, don't give up the hope, don't give up the ship. So I mean, and a few Trump jokes. So it was a very odd. It was a very odd brew, and I think clearly whatever plans that advertisers were making last year to turn the Super Bowl into a red country celebration got second thoughts when the Women's March, after the Women's March. That's right, because you saw with the Women's March that there were millions of people running into this who were willing to run out in the street and say, to heck with this guy and to heck with this, and I'm not going to buy your product if you run a commercial saying I'm going to wrap myself in an American flag and kick an immigrant out of the country and drink this drink or whatever. So,
are you a Trump fan?
So I think, and then now there's a debate, and this Sunday, are people going to avoid it? Are they going to go back to it again? Was it a moment last year where people felt the need to jump in and talk about it? There's all sorts of discussion about that, about how much should advertising be woke and not woke, and should you be there? There are going to be a lot of pro-social ads and a lot of cause-related ads, and the one Budweiser ad that is running is going to highlight the public service that they do after storms, where they can water instead of beer, and they rush those water cans to affected communities. So the one commercial, at least the one that I know of, that Budweiser will run during the Super Bowl is going to celebrate that public service hurricane relief thing they do. So
Stella Artois is doing a water.
They're doing a water.org. It's an ad.
Matt Damon, I
think. Except they picked Matt Damon for the commercial, so that's going to be interesting because he has a lot of baggage now with Time's Up and Me Too, and whether the one cause is going to cancel out the other cause.
I've noticed
be interesting.
Water, no pun intended or pun intended, seems to be bubbling up because of the droughts in Cape Town. I know the Philadelphia Flower Show, the International Flower Show, one of the biggest in the world. It's all around water this year and water conservation. So, well, we can't. I didn't even get half of my questions asked. And so we'll have to have you
back again.
Right, so,
I'll have to come back.
So Stuart Elliott, tell everyone how they can find you and follow you. And
okay, I'm on Twitter. My handle is @StuartENYT. You can find me on LinkedIn.
And of course at Media Village.
And on MediaVillage.com, where I write a column, and in CBS Watch magazine. And if I'm moderating a panel or speaking to a group or a college class, be sure to drop by and say hello.
Well, I can't wait to follow along with you on the
Twitter.
On the Twitter. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And,
thank you both.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, time's a thief. I want to thank Stuart Elliott for joining us. John, thank you. Thanks to our production staff, John and Allie and Garrett. Thanks to our partner here on the Focus Group, Deep Discount. Be sure to go over to focusgroupradio.com. For the whole month of February, there's a special 15% coupon. Go to FG15 or type that in, FG15.
That's when you do your whole order.
You do the whole order and stock up. We want to also remind you that John and I are releasing a new podcast. Is it new or is it?
No, it's part of our normal, but it's a new content during the week.
New content during the week, and I didn't know what to say. Is it a new podcast? It's called Unbuttoned, Focus Group Unbuttoned. It's a 15 to 20-minute lowdown on what's happening in pop culture. A little more politics than we talk here, and some of the consumer culture. And so be sure to find that released on Tuesdays, where you currently find us on all the platforms. If you go to focusgroupradio.com, you'll find them. And a special thanks to Volkswagen of America as we're starting our 8th year with the brand, joining us and bringing us out to you every week. We appreciate their support. Go to VW.com and check out all the great cars Volkswagen has to offer. They're not on the Super Bowl this year, but we find out that the Force ad from, was it 11 or 12?
11.
11.
May the Force be with you.
May the Force
be with you, clearly.
Still paying back dividends. So that Star Wars branding, our co-branding event worked well for them. Remember, John, what is it? Don't text and drive.
Arrive alive.
Arrive alive. I was looking at you packing up and trying to see what's happening. Watch the Super Bowl. Let us know what you think next week. Take care.
It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Formerly on Sirius XM Satellite Radio and now accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.